that. Alright. Alright, boys, let's have a look. We're just going to get into this and have a bit of a chat if anybody has questions. I'll see how long this goes for, because I want to try to just like pump out the interesting maps, or maybe the whole set. Some cool moments. I also have up here me versus Dan. Yeah. Then the Kawachikon me versus Rapha, which is also quite spicy. I like spicy food. Not really actually, but anyway. Okay, so Rapha banned Ruins. That's kind of a standard. I think he just doesn't like that map. It's hard to... You can sometimes get fucked by a lot of rails, and, well, that's exactly why. Happened in the Kawachikon one as well. For me, this tournament was more like ban CK or ban Deep. So I just banned Deep instead. He picked CK. I was feeling pretty good on it at the time. The nice thing with Rapha, and sometimes with players who do pick 3 maps pretty consistently, so he, at the moment of the map rotation, he really likes his CK, his Veil, and his DM6. So you know, even if you ban one of these maps, it's going to be this map or this map, or this map. So it's a bit like pick your poison of what you think. And generally, sometimes he leaves it open. Like I think when I played him at in Melbourne or Kawachikon, he picked DM6 first. So it's like, you know, whatever, right? All right, well, Anarchy versus Athena, banned Ranger. It's still pretty even here. Even here too. Probably actually favor the BJ. And I think in future I need to really reconsider. This is not a terrible matchup, but I think it's actually favored for him. Just like movement, how can I say? Movement, the hitbox, and just like getting around the map. When he fights you, he just has a better advantage, I think. And that actually, especially lately with the light champs, Jesus Christ, it's like you just have a fucking such a big advantage. Here's a couple of shots of me looking saucy. Hang on a second. Here's a picture of Rapha looking saucy. Alright. Let's have a look. Some of the biggest things I think at the moment, especially in these matches, was more about like just picking the kind of understanding the pace from the get-go. Because just even at the very start of the game, he just basically rushed. He rushed Rail with Rocket. I think he did even get the Mega. I think he might have. But point being, like in tournament games like this, sometimes like getting the early advantage of the early pressure really just sets the tone. And lucky with me playing Anarchy there, could just kind of slip away quite easily. And now I'm more just trying to figure out, just trying to give space to myself so I can like kind of get a bit of a pacing in the game, because he is playing quite fast at the moment, and just kind of the pressure at the start. It's like actually a bit hard to follow what's happening. So at the moment, I'm actually just trying to like figure out when the items are again, so that I can kind of reset myself. And this is kind of one of the nice things about Anarchy, is that he's just that fucking hard to hit. He didn't really have much of an option there when he went up the bounce pad with the weapons he could use. He could actually pressure a bit more here, but decides not to. Now me, I'm just trying to see if he's either delaying the heavy, or I can just assume he's picked it up basically straight away. And again, now that he has like the stack advantage, it's a bit hard for me to still pressure this Mega, so I wouldn't be surprised if I don't even peek at all. Oh well, I guess I did. But notice he's picked up the Mega. Now that I have inject, now I can actually fight the heavy. So I was actually just kind of see if I could get any form of chip damage. And again, even me hitting that rail at Mega didn't necessarily do much, because he's picked up that lower armor down here, or he could have, and he's basically the same stack that he was. Maybe a little bit less overstack of the heavy, but nothing that's going to stop him from pushing the heavy again still. Oops. 1 second. So this is one of the issues. This is very similar to like a ranger that plays on this map, in that any champion that can just basically get on top of you, you have to be really careful of your weapon selection. So it seems excessive that I'm actually going to back away even after firing the rail, but this is because as soon as he's within a certain range where if he can attack me between the reload, that's where the trouble is. But if I constantly always have that distance, Anarchy is actually exceptionally good because of his movement, his hitbox, and his ability to. And that's exactly what he does. And notice how as soon as I fire that rail, I'm already thinking about moving backwards because I did miss. Even if I did connect, to be honest, he can still do that play. Again, now what I'm trying to do, this is another thing about players that have speed, is that let's say that I stay for this rail. Even if I connect, it's actually going to make my decision-making forced for the next area. So because he's so quick and he's Athena, let's say if I get railed and we trade, and then I'm forced to go for this armor, I'm basically still fucked because I'm going to be trapped and he has flexibility to... how can I say? He has flexibility to just like engage or disengage, whereas I don't have a choice in that. Whereas alternatively, if I don't hit the rail at all, I'm sacrificing at most that I would have done like 30 armor damage because he would have like done the thing with the heavy where you maximize the pickup, and I would have lost 50 armor, and then I would have been trapped here. So actually, it kind of makes more sense to just not even attack there. And what I'm trying to do is do a certain amount of combo damage that eventually, when I do have enough and I can just overwhelm him, that's what I'm going to do. Now, blowing the inject here seems unnecessary, but what that's going to do is that we're now going to have at least a 50-50 over this mega. If I didn't inject here and he just wanted to push, I couldn't even hold for this item. But there's enough time, I think that's 3 seconds instead of 5, enough time for me to be able to, how can I say, actually still win the item and take it off Rapha. And even if we trade here, let's say if he does rail me again, I'm going to get the overstack from the mega, and I'm going to get this armor that's behind me at nailgun. And it's always going to put me at the most, what I would describe on a graph as like, the highest point of strength that my character can have. So this is kind of giving me as many options that I possibly can get. At least I think so, with this situation. Let's have a look. It's still a bit hard here, again, because he's Athena, and the weapon choice that I'm using, depending on how much value I get out of the tribal, because he is so quick, he literally can just like hook between the damage. And so again, I'm constantly playing like this plus back game, because I'm basically just trying to fight him in between the items until I finally get a moment where I do enough damage that I do win the item. But again, that's still enough space for him to keep pressuring them. And now we can see why I didn't do that. Sometimes it's bad to do that, because now that he's going to pick up that mega, and now I don't have even enough time to even defend that lower armor. But he's taken a different route, so it's kind of worked out for me. And again, this is the issue that we were kind of like trying to avoid, but now it's actually happened. But now we can see what to do when you are 100 HP, which is basically you can't fight them at all for the next like minute or so until the items completely reset on the map. But this also gives like not really... This is still kind of a hard for Rapha, because what I'm trying to do, and it's like very specific, is if he picks up the mega straight away, then at least I know when the timing is, and obviously it makes me safe from not being killed. But the more time he spends taking away from that mega, maybe the items will be more closely synced, which means that because when someone does a complete map domination or a complete map rotation, they have to run from one item to the next very quickly. But what you can do is that because he's not going to pick up the Mega straight away and he's going to try and come attack me, those other items on the map are slowly going to be spawning, and then he's going to be pulled away from too many positions. So what I'm actually trying to do is like kind of bait him a little bit, stay in a position which is like in between two items where he has to decide, can he get a rail off? Can he do some kind of damage where he can convert? While he's still trying to pick up the Mega. So let's have a look if that actually works out. He does hit the rails. But again, if I can manage to survive here... Okay, I don't manage to survive. So he actually has managed to convert the rails like he was supposed to, but at the very least now the items have been reset on the map. And now, so he has traded that one frag, but now I actually managed to pick up every other armor on the map, and I got the heavy as well. And this is the other significance of like light champ versus light champ, is that him missing that rail now puts me in a really good position for this Mega. And he does get pretty lucky then. Top armor does spawn first here, but we're going to see. He doesn't really have weapons just yet. I'm surprised that I don't inject just yet. I do have HMG, which is like a pseudo LG in this situation as well, which is kind of like somewhat underutilized as well. LG can be like a really good weapon to be a bit consistent with defending, but LG, I mean, heavy machine gun, especially against light champions, can just, you know, do really good DPS and also defend quite well too.
So much damage unanswered with that LG as Rapha was able to catch him from up above. ZenAku still got away. With the fight that Rapha is going to... Who's going to get it? Looking like it should be ZenAku, but there's going to be a fight first. A fight that Rapha is going to dedicate to Wheat.
Here's the other strength of Anarchy too, so his LG pushes me out there. And he's done a really good job of understanding of like how to get the most amount of damage to kind of push me away there. And this is just simply Anarchy versus Athena. It's just very hard for me to... He just has too much mobility options compared to what the Anarchy does, but at the end of the day, it's 4 minutes into 1-0. Which doesn't seem like much, but one mistake by him can actually just make the game completely tied. And all these close moments can be converted quite easily. So as much as it's still, I'm still only 100 HP, it's still only 1-0, which is actually really critical.
Without any sort of an armor stack at all, needs to be incredibly careful. And this is where suddenly knowing that Athena can grapple and could be coming from areas that you might not expect, there's a rail from behind.
And again, now here, it's just still trying to survive with... It doesn't really matter which direction I go. We're just kind of guessing so I don't just die on 15 HP.
Far from the first time ZenAku's been taken by surprise by those surprise rails.
But now it kind of gives me an option to get out. And the really important thing here is me actually getting the time shards in between all these as well. Because it's going to give me a lifeline later on as well. He could be potentially top shotgun here, which this is like a rail angle that also exists, but don't think he goes for it. Maybe he was there, I'm not sure. Unfortunately, he just got hit there, but... And he caught the very tail end of that. Rapha actually is very good at those angles, and he understands how to create them as well. Notice like what he does is he specifically... If you notice on his... where he is right here, so he was at nail gun. But then instead of like coming towards up here, he hard strafes towards bounce pad, which opens the angle from this side. Whereas if he had just like run up here, he wouldn't have created it. And he just understands how to create those.
I mean, and that is what 2 rails in a row can do, and how quickly it can change. Suddenly, Rapha now with a stack and with generally
It's kind of tough. He's just had a lot of moments where he has opened up the game because of like just like for example that kill at Rocket was somewhat of a coincidence. Like he just was he was holding that angle and then followed up and just went 2-0 there, especially against a light champ. Not so much you can do there. But overall, again, I think holding this amount of having the score line this low, despite the amount of control he's had, is actually still pretty good. And we're going to see very soon, hopefully, what that looks like when it's converted otherwise.
great rocket coming out from ZenAku. Good anticipation and read. Just going to try to answer back, but these drive-by rails catch up. They seem to be
But again, because he just has like too much of the mobility advantage, it's very hard for me to kind of maximize enough damage together to be able to actually, you know, maintain full control. That rail kind of does open things up. Now I can, yeah, and I inject here so I can actually defend this heavy. And I managed to escape without taking any damage. I think he actually messed up the timing there because I'm curious why he does show up late. Yeah, I think he confused this heavy time. Even at the reaction in his face, you can actually see he was like, "What the fuck?" Yeah, he understood that he either messed up the time just by a little bit, or he confused that time with this item. But now this is the, yeah, even what Ketchup is about to say.
The question is, can he win it regardless? Looks more like he's trying to disengage and set up for heavy. Getting that item control will help the comeback.
Yeah, this is really going to be decided a lot by those rails and the LG. They're
not so much that you can really do there. You kind of do have to play your odds a little bit, because even here when I push the choke and I get hit by this defensive rocket, it's hard to say. I think you do have to at least push there, or you have to try, because if you don't try at all, then you never have it. You never do enough damage to actually kind of get them low enough. As much as it looked really bad for me, at least I can still back away, inject, and still hopefully win this heavy. But if you never push there either, you don't really give yourself the chance to do enough damage to get him in a killable range, because he's like just so elusive with the hooks. And this is the problem with Anarchy versus Athena, and arguably why Athena is the better character. Because the problem with high mobility characters, similar with like Ranger as well, being able to orb in, is that it fucks too much. The amount of distance you can cover with how quick you can get there in between reload is too quick. And so it always makes this really awkward potential where you want to use Railgun, or you want to be able to kind of like tag them from far away, but the problem is he can hook in between damage and then just kill you with like rockets or something while in between rail reload. So you constantly have to be really careful with defensive weapon choice. But if you do actually finally manage to get some rails off, like I kind of am now all of a sudden it's 2-2. Rapha doesn't have the weapons yet, and it's going to kind of give me an option here. Nice. This is a bit of a mistake by Rapha. I would say this is kind of more of a bit of a pressure push. He does understand that I could also push from shotgun, but I think the quick change of momentum, and this is something to be understood as well, especially in tournament, is that when there's big changes in momentum, the other player is kind of like, it does cause quite a big of an emotional response. So even him pushing to rail here, it does sound quite insignificant. But if I hit an opening rail here, he's also dead again, and it's 3-1. Let's have a look. But he does get away very narrowly by doing that push.
+1 or -1 situations. So
Even if he had shotgun, that's all he had.
damage, especially with that point blank super shotgun. What it has done now is given
833.
Rapha getting caught in a really bad spot here. There's the eject. No armor on this ZenAku, so
It's a bit of an awkward fight.
Rapha to win, but now all the armor's gone. ZenAku is going to take that risk. Can afford to tank a rail, but cannot afford
He get like a okay. Let's think about that for a second. Still not too bad too.
ZenAku is going to take that risk.
But in terms of like with defensive, put like how do I say? This is similar to like me pushing a nail gun and me getting hit by that rocket, where there's a couple of things that are happening here. He fires the rocket as soon as he possibly can, in the sense that if I'm also pushing at my maximum speed, it's like a really nice, well-timed rocket, but at the same time, it's also kind of obvious. And what I mean by that is like if you can see someone traveling at high speed, because they're traveling at their maximum speed, you can actually kind of predict easier. Your brain is actually easier to track. Whereas if I actually stop for like half a second before going through this teleporter, maybe I don't get hit by the rocket. But then what also happens is that I don't create myself an angle to hit him again. So he's actually covered his own base by firing that rocket at that specific time. But I'm also kind of forced to go through the teleporter as quick as that, because if I do stop for half a second, I don't even have the angle to hit anyway. So I'm kind of forced to, again, push through, and then I'm still potentially could get hit by it. But even if I do, I should try to create the angle. And as you can see, look how narrowly close he is away. So again, those are just the percentages you have to kind of play with, and that's kind of what Quake is all about.
I feel like there's a great rail, almost a follow-up here. A rail returned by Rapha. Both players super low, and as he drops.
This I think was really surprising by him, but I think he understood that I was 50 HP. It looks like a really bad push by him, but actually, because I was so low, you can't do stuff like that. And starting machine gun is just that crazy.
I like what we're seeing out of the shotgun. Rapha now has an opportunity. ZenAku incredibly low, down to 67 points of health. He picks up some health as well, and we enter into the final.
Now, I'll admit this is actually where I did fuck up, and that's more just the case of just being a bit unfamiliar with this situation. It's Rapha, you know, but I think I'm becoming more confident with just, you know, how I feel about these situations and closing them out. It's very interesting. A lot of these games is actually it's a lot to do with his mental, like how you feel or how you approach the game is so much to do about how you perceive your opponent, and also moments like this, right? So you can put all the practice in the world, but with how I engage in the last this last little period here, basically the pressure of the moment of almost beating Rapha kind of got to me a little bit. And then similarly, where I pushed, similarly when he had pushed rail before, like how I almost just won the game there with like 10 seconds to go, just pushing the heavy, well, wasn't going to work out.
Observations that we saw there, ZenAku with those 3 frags, I believe they were all from the shotgun, using it in great positions. There was a couple of times where Rapha had a little bit of a vertical.
I'm actually going to go switch to the DM6 game because there are some moments that I'd like to show more about that than the CK.
The composure these two are able to display that they've tapped, and so be it. But those will make it to tomorrow's championship finals.
And we're looking through the eyes of ZenAku off of the bat. Has not popped that piercing sight right away, but will get himself a railgun. Let me just swap over really quick, as I think both players.
DM6 is really interesting because there actually are quite a lot of nice openers that you can do. You don't necessarily need to rush to your items so quickly. So even then as well, he actually had the rail spawn, but because I rocket jumped to top mid, stole that top armor, and then also tried to go for a rail while he was at heavy. It's just another thing you can do rather than just going for mega.
You've got to hit those shots because if you both hit each other and they're hitting more than you are going to be the one in much more of a world of hurt because you just haven't got the means to recover.
But now this is where it's like really good for me because I did manage to get both items, do my ability here, but him getting that rail is going to push me away.
So far is that ZenAku has pretty good control there. We saw the piercing sight come out. That's exactly where Rapha was right above him.
Seems trivial about me actually using piercing sight there, but what that's going to do is actually give me an option to pressure this heavy now because I did have that extra, just a bit of extra armor to now pressure just here. I think I did actually sense that he did use it. Let's have a listen. A bit too risky for me to stay onto the mega there.
ZenAku was prepared. He must have just seen it appear.
That was a bit risky. The rocket jump into the teleporter just kind of a little bit, and there's another rail. 10 points of health remaining.
And when you're this low after you're getting connected by those rails, there's not much you can do. And that's kind of just another element of sometimes why rail in Quake. It's a blessing and a curse. It's a really cool idea, but there are some moments where it doesn't matter how good you play, just because of like how damage works and how quickly you can move between positions. There's just unavoidable. That's why these like high speed characters sometimes are quite useful. Or because of just how rail works. There's even other moments where you can like rail your opponents in a really awkward way, but because of how the rail pushes you, and because you manage to hit like a low percentage rail in an awkward way, it actually forces you to commit where you don't necessarily want to. And on DM6, that actually does happen quite a lot. You know, for example, even let's have a look back here. So I thought he was like on the mega, but because of just how I was moving, instead of going to the rocket, now I've like committed. But instead I could have potentially moved to the rocket side, and then been safe and then been able to convert. But then I have to do some kind of awkward move to escape.
10 points of health. He went for it.
ZenAku's not going to have much to start with at the moment. That rocket jump.
Well, Slumbera, I wish I was tall, mate, but unfortunately I don't have those sweet genetics.
Back over to Rapha now. He's got his ghost walk up. Piercing sights over and done with for 36 seconds. And now Rapha looking to try to possibly squeeze away some control here. He's going to nail jump up to the top. Possibly throw ZenAku off just a little bit. Nice job with that tribal. And he has got some.
So again, we're just trying to like playing around this mega here, just kind of playing the angles a bit.
Almost had a lined up shot right there. He does manage.
Nice rail by him.
That rail grabs the mega, and now is on the run.
That was so smart from Rapha, and it demonstrated such patience too. I think a lot of players in that position
would have just fired.
They would have just fired,
Yeah,
because they would have seen their opponents not looking in that direction, and they would have gone right.
Okay, so now he knows I would have sided there, so he's now picking a different angle. Nice invis push by him, and I kind of have the sense that something is up. Now, what he does with the invis is very specific there too, because once sight is down, it kind of so when you're attacking an item, arguably the person who's attacking, depending on how quick you're moving and the position of where you're standing, the defender generally has the advantage because they're gonna see you're gonna see them first, and you're able to kind of, how do I say, set yourself up so you can just LG them, hit a rail, hit something like that. But what the Nyx can do, compared to other characters, and what's like also in Athena, is that she can invis to understand where I'm standing, to then pick the right weapon, to then start fighting. It's quite nice that they added that like delay between shooting and using your ability. Otherwise, this would be fucking ridiculous. But it does give me an option that as soon as I notice that too, I can change weapon. And we can kind of have a bit of an even stead. So right now, what I'm doing is I actually drop because I'm trying to pick. I can understand that he potentially could do this. So naturally, by default, unless you want to risk that, you could just say, well, I have to pick the safest option. Because if I do pick a risky option and then he has a better weapon choice, I'm dead. And then it's also bad, because I'm dead.
Damage after you've picked the item up.
Ooh, nice rocket from up above. Ooh, answered back by ZenAku. Great shot from down below. Definitely, you know.
Alright.
Thought this game would slow down. That seemed to be
So I'm 100. We're about even here. Now look what he does. Doesn't pick up the heavy straight away. Very slight delay, but not by that much. I'd be surprised if he goes through HMG TP here. But I guess I've backed away enough.
7 minutes of this map, so with it being one frag down. Got a piercing sight, got a bit more stack. I'm playing Visor, right? Visor's often.
And this is exactly what he wants. He wants to do damage before he picks up the Mega, so then he has a maximum for being able to push in moments like this. I've hit really clutch rails there. It's not as impressive. I mean, impressive. It's not as difficult because, again, he was falling. Sometimes close range rails are risky because, you know, the way that people attack, but because he was falling like that, and really nice by me to actually do that as well. And the other thing as well, let's look at the situation, right? It's pretty unlucky that the movement actually pushed him off the heavy. And again, so now let's look at the situation, right? I want to also show you something about mental and tournament play. So look how frustrating the situation is. Now look at how he plays the next 30 seconds. Even just judging by his movement, I don't know how easy it is to see, but the way he moves through the middle part of the map is not as like carefree as he how do I say? He's not as careful as he usually is because he's a little bit pissed off because that situation was a big, like, it just changed quite quickly, right? So now he's run through the other side of the map, and again, he's actually in a dangerous position. I think I even have LG here. He does hit like a spam rocket that does 30. So you kind of have to notice these moments too when you're playing opponents and, well, depending on how they feel about it too. It's just very hard to mentally, like, deal with big changes like that, especially because Quake is that chaotic.
Quite able to get much out of that. Ooh, no. Looks for a rail. No one home. Much out of that. With this Mega about to
Just looking at the attack that I did. Unfortunately, just missed my rocket, but now I can't do really too much here on this heavy. But he's also doesn't have his invis for another 30 seconds. Take the time shards. Now I have upper position, but he does have a bit more stack than me. And notice the weapon choice. He's not using rail. He doesn't want to get into a rail battle with me, so he's just trying to add pressure by using nails, using heavy machine gun. That angle should have technically been... So let's have a look at the situation as well. This is very specific about, like, why Quake is sometimes all about math. So this position is actually better for me to hit the rail down onto him. But because I'm strafing horizontally and I actually make my body more visible, and again, that similar idea I was talking about before, when a player is moving from one position to another and they're moving at the exact same speed, you know, you don't have to guess about moving your crosshair to the right. I'm only moving left. And so I give him a full body shot for him to be able to, like, dodge. Whereas if I'm actually just, like, at rockets and kind of just, like, sidestepping, this technically is a better position for me. But I'm just trying to make my way to the heavy before he does. You wouldn't necessarily... Oh, here we go. I think he just fucked up the time there. Well, obviously he had. Or maybe he didn't expect... I think what this was here... it's very interesting. So many things are actually happening in this moment. I think I recognized that he had invis, but the position that he was in and how far he is away from the heavy, I can do this play. If he wanted to drop to that lower armor and do what he's doing now. Okay, so let's look at my options here. I want to pick up the Mega. I want to try to do as much pressure as I can before he gets the rail, but
4 minutes 50 seconds.
I don't want to get too stuck where I lose a lot of my stack here, so I do be a little bit patient, because if he does do like 150 damage with fucking heavy machine gun, and then I'm also trapped and I'm missing, it can be bad.
Being able to literally right as he's about to appear there, the piercing sight, and actually ZenAku in this
Let's have a
position.
look.
This is a clutch rail moment. Rapha can't quite hit it.
Being a little bit careful, but now both these items are up, so it's still relatively even. He does get the heavy, but I'm also in position for the Mega now.
Rapha, we've seen him rise to the occasion years and years and years, one frag down. But here's the thing.
I needed to take a bit more advantage there, but it was kind of awkward.
It is. Rapha doing a good job. He has taken the heavy, was able to get the Mega as well. Heavy's
This is a nice little escape by me.
safety here for ZenAku.
I mean, worth it.
I think in situations like this, let's have a look.
Was able to get the Mega as
This is kind of like pick your poison. So here, if I strafe to the right, I'm pretty much dead anyway. But if I do rocket jump up, I do make the situation very awkward. So instead of making the situation like an 80% death for me, now because I have such a higher position advantage and doesn't completely understand like which way I could go, or even like how I've rocket jumped,
well. Heavy's
I can manage to escape.
rocket jump to safety here for ZenAku.
I mean, worth it.
Totally worth it. Very, very low.
Now I have enough stack to be able to go here.
What he does next is going to be huge, and there we see the machine gun damage coming out.
And there's another beautiful thing about Quake. Let's look at the very specific of what happens here.
And there we see the
Boop, 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 boop. Okay. So he's actually one tick. Now let's look at the science, if we're all Quake scientists here. Okay, tap, 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 tap. Switches to rail. Now look at this. So he's one tick. Look where my crosshair is. And the rail actually, it actually fucked me up. Now I'm making a big deal of this situation, but it's actually about something very specific, which is like when you're fighting someone and you're adding pressure to them, and how you attack them also impedes how they're shooting on you. And this is a direct example of how this looks. But for example, when someone's using heavy machine gun and you're trying to use rail, actually it's like quite hard for the rail player to use the rail, because they're constantly being like hit with starting heavy machine gun that's constantly pushing their crosshair off your opponent over a weapon that's meant to be very precise. And so here, this is actually another application, because that rail actually saved him. If he didn't, he'd be fucking dead for sure.
incredibly low. It's not necessarily a risk.
And unfortunately, to my own demise, if I was more experienced with DM6, I know this angle exists, but I just didn't know enough about it to do it. But he actually would have died here.
Necessarily a risk you could take now. Got to play this one smart.
Was not expecting Rapha to take that much damage. I don't think any of us were. ZenAku,
Now, unfortunately, I'm on the back end of that situation,
that information is going
but I should be able to collect this lower armor here, I think, in a second.
to door for a fair old while, but he just keeps on trucking, keeps on bringing himself back up to a regular stack as there's now heavy next objective. But who's in a better position? Surely it's got to be ZenAku, who beats him to the punch, and the duel up close begins.
Like a little bit of rocket
Have to be a bit careful of him pushing here.
Rapha. 6 minutes 30 seconds.
Now we're in a similar position too. He's going to be able to get the Mega.
Good with those.
I could potentially go high ground here too, but
Heavy. There's
okay, also works.
This is just
Nice.
back and forth.
I'm really struggling to watch this in the best possible way, I will admit.
Now I need to just make sure I get the heavy in the cleanest way possible. This is a little bit depressing to see, because now looking back at this moment, it's hard to imagine how I don't convert a kill in this next little bit. Or at the very least convert the Mega. Okay, well that's why. Lol. So let's have a look at the fumble a little bit.
Final elimination to hit the 3.
And this is why it's all about timing. I often like to say or think that like sync error is either It's either sheer coincidence or Sinker is a genius. I think Sink is a genius. But let's have a look. Because so much to do about the game is actually about what I would call, I guess you can call it like relative timing and decision making. So the more time you have to spend committing to a decision actually actively takes away from a future moment, which the timing has to be so specific. So a simpler way to put it is like light champions kind of break this method because they're just that fast that doesn't matter where you're trying to go, they're basically going to fucking beat you there all the time. But what happens here is because I go back here, I drop to this position for nothing, basically. Because I think to myself, oh, maybe time shards are up, which, fair enough. Okay, just kind of checking. Now, imagine if I was here 2 seconds earlier. While he's going up the bounce pad, and I potentially can, like, convert a rail. Doesn't sound like much, but even the fact that I have to, like, we're going there at the same time is what actually makes the situation 50-50, as opposed to being it, like, an 80-20 towards me and I can have, like, a rail advantage. Because of the small moment like that. That's actually more obvious on maps like Corrupted Keep as well, where you, like, spend too much time committing to one side of the map, then you try to go somewhere else. They can set up quite easily.
It is indescribable. You absolutely can. ZenAku with the rail, answered back by Rapha. What's Rapha's next move here? The time's ticking away, 2 minutes and 30 seconds remaining. Piercing sights down. Ghost walks up. Mega's picked up by ZenAku. Another cycle begins.
Rapha knows that although just over 2 minutes isn't a long time, it's enough to still play for the items when you have them, because that stack is going to be insurmountable to one of your, well, the comeback of comebacks at this point. You need that frag, but with the extra...
He is quite low here. I hope I use sight. Please tell me I use sight. Ah, F. What I should have realized here is that I've done enough damage in between items that I can just basically pressure with sight and keep it up here. Even though I'm on the low ground. Let's have a look. Okay, so 70 damage and relatively for free. Okay, now I've also done another 50 damage for free. So essentially, we would do, without making it too complicated again, what I would call like a 1-0 type of damage. So I've done like one fairly decent amount of damage that I haven't received back, which then puts me in a position that I can like pressure him off an item. Now Heavy and Mega are about the same time, so I should think and I have the ability to be able to just find out where he is and go kill him. Me going for the Heavy or the Mega doesn't necessarily increase my value in the game where it is at the moment. Both items are up. Basically, everything is up, it looks like. But he is at what I would call a critical HP. So he's 50 HP. It means that his decision-making now becomes more obvious. He has to go for the health bubbles because if he doesn't, he dies. If he doesn't go for the health bubbles and I find him, he dies. And I have sight to be able to do that. So what I should have done and what I should have recognized in the situation is that the most optimal decision for me to do in this moment is to just fucking use my ability and just try to pressure him a little bit. Because what that at least is going to do is like force him to, like, I can push him around the map. Let's say even if I push him towards the Heavy, he's then stuck. He's like stuck as similar like he was, like I would have been on Insomnia at the Rocket Armor. Which then gives me opportunity to kill because I'm the one who's deciding if I want to fight or not. I have the kill potential. Or ultimately, what else I could do is I could pressure him, do a bit more damage, go steal the Heavy, the rocket jump to the Mega, and again, I'd be the player there who's there first, because of I would have rocket jumped, and then I would have been able in a really good position. But, you know, it's quite a lot of things going on. It's hard to necessarily nail that, but that opportunity did exist.
Yeah, it really is. 2 minutes now. There's the piercing sight.
I have managed to actually manage to get both items here, but which actually still works out not too bad. Nice little rocket by him, actually. Now let's look at that. So this lower armor is up, but this one spam rocket fucks my movement just so that when he's actually pressuring here, it kind of makes it a bit unsafe. It's a bit hard for me to completely know for sure me pushing this angle would be a safe decision. Because that rocket actually did a decent amount of damage, 45, and also stopped my momentum. So small things like that are actually very important. Okay, so this is a small moment in the game where I did make a mistake. And this is similar to what happened on the first map, and similar to something to think about on, how do I say, closing out games, and especially in important games like this, that I'll now know for future, because I'll never forget. I don't want to lose like that again. And what this moment is because so there's a minute and a half left, and I'm one frag up. Now, it doesn't seem like much. It's not too bad to just like not be to not pressure here either. But even if I get railed, I'm gonna be like 70 and 10. Pick up one health bubble, pick up one small armor. I'm going to be 100 health and 60. Now, if I just play defensive here, and I just pick up another armor, I'm 100 health and 100. But in terms of how much damage he can do in particular moments, this idea is a bit complicated, but hopefully you can bear with me or just watch this back. Because the amount of damage he could do, that 40 armor differential, it isn't really that big of a deal, actually. Because I'm not really looking to take LG fights. When the fuck are you going to take LG fights on this map? And even if I picked up another health bubble and I'm 100 health and 60, one health bubble will make me, like, 2 railable. I mean, I could take 2 rails. Long story short, what I'm trying to say is that the math doesn't add up, and actually, me still pressuring on this moment does a couple of things. One, it gives me an opportunity to actually still fight him here and potentially trade while he's the one who's trapped on the mega, and I have the capacity to disengage. Or 2, it actually also says to him that I'm still willing to fight on the map. And I talked about this with like a few other players later on, and it's so funny because as I was doing it, I actually specifically felt that exactly as it happened in this exact moment. That if I had like just kept pressuring him, it doesn't make the game, doesn't give him as much space in the game. And that's even in terms of like just mental or how he can move around the map so confidently, because now it's similar to map 1. I've got a 1 frag advantage. All I have to do is survive for another minute 30 and I win the map, right? But you have to remember that, well, just to keep playing the whole time. It's something that I think you just continually to understand. Hit a nice defensive rail there, though.
The rocket comes barreling towards you, and suddenly ZenAku is going to be the hunted here. Despite the fact down by 1, Rapha knows that he's got to bring this one back. Another combo coming out there by ZenAku.
I am softening him up a little bit.
The 1-minute warning, only guaranteed to.
But I don't have my vision here.
I can't watch.
37.
50 seconds down. Or to go, I guess I should say. The armor, the next objective, the opening rock.
And these are the type of things, okay. Oh, it makes me cringe just to watch. Oh, God. All right, let's have a look. So, talking about pressure earlier and stuff like that. The reason why he catches me here is because I'm strafing into the fucking wall. It's because I think that I'm actually closer to the nail gun than I think I am. And it gives him like it gives him the capacity to hit this rocket, which now it commits me now because I can't move this whole time I'm being bounced. I potentially could have like been defensive there with the rocket, but he was in a good position.
This is huge going into the final 30 seconds of this game. It's tied back up 1-1.
What's the strategy up the 9-minute mark? Well, I should have kept pressuring. There are certain moments in the game where you can actually run, maybe like with 30 seconds left, where clearly you can actually get your opponent to overcommit. But ultimately, you need to keep playing until it's, until running is actually the only choice.
Rails 2 back to back. ZenAku not going to peak. Needs to get some stack back. Would have been out of this world to peak that and we are entering a sudden death. Possibly the most pivotal sudden death we've had all week.
It's absolutely unreal here. We've got Flea next to us who's literally just hands on head. Can't even believe it. Mouth agape. This is the what? Oh.
This is another interesting moment too. Insignificant, well, relatively insignificant, but so we're fighting for this armor. It doesn't sound like much, but try to understand like the context is like, if I fight for this armor and it doesn't spawn, I'm like pretty much, I could be pretty much dead. But because of like the pressure here, and he doesn't want to make a mistake, I don't want to make a mistake. All I have to do is like just even hit a little bit of LG, and he doesn't want to commit either. So we're both playing this really safe game. But this one armor now makes me 100, which now makes me able to potentially contest this heavy. If I had like not contested that armor, he could have potentially have denied it. I would have been 100 health and 50. He would have been trying to cross the map, and then he would potentially would have been able to trap me. So me picking that armor actually gives me good stead.
Absolutely starting to melt Rapha, and Rapha with the shotgun blast that was just so perfectly put as he flies across the side. You have to give so much respect for both players and how that game was played. 1-2, unreal.
That was possibly the best way you could end a stream.
Well, just quick check that last moment again. I'm just curious.
Saved for the Ghost Walk.
Got Flea. Wild sight is going to be hit this day too.
So he's at that platform. Oh no, he still is at the back one. I don't know how he managed to hear the piercing side, but he must have apparently. Apparently he did tell me he did hear it. Or I heard him say that he did hear the side, and that's what it kind of made it a bit more. Even this moment in itself is also quite interesting because again, it's about perceived knowledge. So in my head, I thought he was out of the range to hear it. But what in his side, he actually did hear it. And he thinks, no, he now maybe expects fuck. He maybe expects that I don't know that he knows he heard it. Which is the case. Which is why he can kind of, when he's spamming this rocket, it feels like, well, does he spam the rocket close or does he spam it deep? But this is more of a case of how much knowledge I expect him to know and how much knowledge he actually knows. And so that's why he fires the rocket so early. And it's 72 damage shotgun, but I mean, it's Visor. What are you going to do? Yeah, you're right, Netflix. Like send me a bluff too, I feel. Okay. Well. So that's that. We can continue on to what I'll do is I'll review 2 of these maps from here as well. I might do the Ruins one, and I'll do the Awoken, the map that I had lost. But anyway, guys, I'm going to take a quick break. Let me quick go to the bathroom. And I know that he knew that he thought I had heard. Okay. And I know that he knew... Hang on. I know that he knew... Don't worry about it. I'm going for a bathroom. Be right back. All right, guys, quick break. I mean, I'll still chat, but just before I start this next one, we'll have a bit of a chat. If anyone wants to talk, Big Dave's here for you. Or maybe you want to say, what did you think about this? I'll openly say something. What did you train those flick no scope rail shots? It's all in the it's combination of the belief, and you literally have to give 0 fucks. The no scope flick or the crazy aim is that you have to be so relaxed or so true to yourself, no homo, that you can that you just don't care, and that's how you hit the crazy shit. Don't be a dick though. Like if you try hard, you won't hit him. It has to be because you can, not because you want to. Oh, you want to as well. Just don't try too hard. Mick, I actually listen to this fucking crisp microphone. Listen to this shit.
Semi-final game in the Kwachikon
Ooh, it's like fucking butter on bread. Lit it.
22 Melbourne Australian LAN tournament. We've got Rapha versus ZenAku. We've got Mick05, I'm Mick05, and Dan the King, who we just saw before in the other semi-final.
I actually like him, Mick. Don't be such a loser cunt. Take the compliment. That's because I got the mic. I got the mic standing. Well, I'm holding it. Let me see if I can show you. This is me getting passionate. Is it this one? Fuck. This one? Oh, I know why. Because it's underneath. See? The passion. God damn it! The passion. All right. Well, if no one's got any questions, we're just going to sit here in silence then. Can you guys still hear my beat? No, I think with an NVIDIA broadcast. Let me try. Hold on. Well, I'm keeping Facecam off because I'm going to upload this to YouTube. On YouTube, have a listen, boys. Do you like this? Alright, I'm gonna change it back. Sweet. Yeah, back to basics. Alright. We're gonna switch to the Ruins game. It's yeah, we'll go. Let's do Ruins. Okay. So, should we start with let's start with some positive. What did I do right? Come on, positive Pete here. What did I do right? Oh, don't worry, it was only the beard. It wouldn't be anything else. But I am quite hairy, and I'm going to leave that information with whatever you'd like to do with it. Okay, the first map. I would argue in court, and quite convincingly with my extensive documents, that Slash is a better pick than Anarchy on DM6. It's a bit of a weird... I think here... Maybe I don't want to give too much theory crafting away, but you got, when Vin Diesel said, I got the need for speed, I don't know if he said that. It made sense. It resonated with me on a deep level. Speed in Quake Champions, well, it's just fucking a little bit broken. And we can understand maybe a little bit why, because we can see on the next map, where I was Nyx and he was Ranger, why did I have such a good time? And I'm telling you, it's not because I'm so fucking good at the game. It's because the champion itself is quite exceptional. Third map, I fucked up. Bit of a, in my own head here, or just didn't expect it, let that one go. Fourth map, alright, let's have a look at the situation. So, online, you could argue that this is pretty 50-50. Maybe Visor and Awoken, some people would say it's shit. I would say it's actually not too bad. Especially against Sulag. She got a big body. Anyway, did you know that Sulag on land actually pretty good? And it's pretty good because when you trade LG, she can actually trade. So I found out on the 4th map, which I'll now know for the rest of my days. The 5th map, they previously updated DK so he didn't have the fire trail. Bit of a fucking weird one, but okay. Day before the LAN, I'll take it. Adam, not pointing any fingers, but anyway, Rapha picked Deep Embrace, and potentially I could have just gone Eisen here myself, and he probably would have gone Keel, or I could have gone Keel, and also wouldn't have been too bad. It's hard to say. I was in a bit of an awkward position here, but I just fucked this map. I fucked this map up. It did feel a little bit shit, but this is more of a case of just momentum. How can I say? Take a deep breath. Reset as best you can. Do your best. I didn't do my best on the last map. I have to do that for next time. And don't think too much about it. Just me talking to myself now. Okay, going back to Ruins. Let's have a look.
He plays it. You take it away, Miko.
Alright, so Rapha, you will get the heavy spawn, Dave, you can see at the top there, taking rockets and then Mega, and will Rapha come back to camp the weapon?
So what's my plan? My plan is here. It is to rail the shit out of him, but it's similar to like that Anarchy versus Athena on Insomnia. It's trying to just pick my best moment to do whatever I need to do. I did blow my invis here as well, but this is because I just don't want to lose the frag. In tournament games like this, especially in this type of scenario, I mean, online, let me ask, it's very fucking loud. Yeah, online, you're kind of blasting games, you kind of don't give a shit. But on LAN in these kind of scenarios, it's actually, I find anyway, a lot to do with emotion control and the moments that happen in the game. I just didn't want to lose the fucking frag in 30 seconds. Very nice rail by me. I feel like with Nyx especially, you don't want to play soft. Now, let's have a look at the situation. Excuse me. Here. Why did I do really well with the LG there? Let's get our notebooks out. So I invis in. Okay, I know he's there. Well, because I'm coming down from the bounce pad. Now, look at how, like, I'm trying to only give him the angle where, like, I also will hit, because I'm the player who's more stack, I'm not trying to fight him in an open area. I mean, I can fight him in an open area, and I probably will do well anyway. But if I'm forever higher stack than him, and we both hit the same percentage, why do I have to give myself the opportunity to potentially fuck my LG up and lose the battle? But so what I do is I play close to the wall so that no matter what happens here, we will always hit very similar percentage, and I should technically win this like 90-10, maybe even higher. And that's what he's trying to do. He's actually trying to open the angle because he's realized he's a little bit too late. In Quake Champions 2, a bit of a fun fact. Sometimes Quake Champions is more about winning the battles as opposed to how much stack you have even when you win them. I mean, it is, if you can win the battle with high stack, that's also really good. But a lot of the time, because of how much things replenish you or the positions you die in, even if you win the item with very low HP, especially if you have like lots of armor after a battle but low HP, you actually do have like quite a good stead to keep contesting afterwards. But again, that's also depending on the map, the champion you're playing, how quick I can pressure you off spawn, stuff like that. So I like what Rapha's trying to do here, but again, this is one of the problems of Ruins and why. So he's picked Ranger here because it was a very safe pick, and I can understand why too. But one of the problems with Ranger is exactly what's happening now, where if he wants to, go from one side of the map to the other and do, and just try to pressure the armors, he's just too slow. He has to use like Orb even just to do that. And it gives me options to, even when I'm 10 HP, to still be able to survive like this. So again, we're trying to remember our situation before about critical mass. What's the difference when I was, when I was 10 HP to now? Even though the similar situation, he had both items, and I was 10 HP back then. I'm just trying to get a stage in the game where items are kind of spawning relatively about the same time, so maybe I can get something, or I'm actually like my natural stack. But obviously, if I'm fighting when I'm 10 HP, it doesn't really make sense. I'm curious. I'm gonna have a quick look here. Why did he miss that? That was a weird rail to miss. He did say that he kind of felt shit on this map, but
Rapha's been cycling the map for at least 2 or 3 minutes now, and not really much to show for it.
and notice now again. Look at the weapon choice that Rapha is using when he's walking around the map. So can he use rockets? So if he uses rockets when he's like trying to pressure a Nyx, if I rail him and I use Invis, he doesn't trade anything. He needs to use an instant damage weapon. He can't really use LG because I'm camping in a corner with rockets and he's trying to LG me. I'll like hit him for 2 rockets and he's also fucked. So in this situation, he's actually forced to run around the map with shotgun, basically, so that he always confirms damage. He's always trading something. And then as soon as he hears that I'm far away and that I'm running away, he switches to rail. But notice again that weapon selection. Okay, now let's look back at this situation. He may be kind of changing his tact there by now, instead of having like a 15-second split in between the items, now he's trying to have a closer split. But in the process of doing that, he's allowed me to now, if I hit the spam damage, because if he wants to collect the items within 5 seconds of each other, he has to take the fastest route. If he's going to take the fastest route, it means that his pathing will be more predictable and opens up the game for me to be able to do this. And just by sheer coincidence, the rocket was already traveling, he doesn't have enough time to switch to rail. Because again, I could invis and do what I've done now. Unfortunately, misses the rail there too. And he's unfortunately I railed him before that, so. I think actually, I'm curious to see if he was missing or if the game did feel like shit, because have a look at this. He actually was about to type something. So I'll give Rapha that, the fact that I actually typed something on the last map, but he was actually about to type something there too, to say that maybe the game needed to be restarted or something like this, but.
control here. Rapha's managed to get his orb back up though, so Dave, he can't just run the items. He needs to be careful coming in. This is the situation where Rapha can just really put a lot of damage on quickly.
Not too much the same. You kind of actually had to like forcibly use rockets there in case I did kind of keep pressuring. So that's why I could kind of get the rail off again. I was a bit surprised why that rail did seem so convenient. I think I hit the rail just as he was about to TP, so then his brain was already thinking about what he was trying to do. So as much as he like also went for that, it's because he was already kind of committed to that decision before and the rail just like hit him at a very awkward time. I should have pressured here, for sure. There's no reason why I shouldn't have. What potentially I could have done there is maybe just like stuck to LG here too. The main thing that I need to do is that I just need to trade damage. As much as he's like, that's what Orb can do. It can make, and that's another part of Quake Champions as well, is that the ability usage or the speed sometimes makes situations that, you know, you just have no control over. It forcibly makes you go all in certain moments. It's more just recognizing how to maximize those situations, because the game is just, I wouldn't say necessarily random, but it's chaotic. Because of how people get bounced, how much damage you do in certain moments. Okay, nice little angle by him. Then small things like that to understand what's actually happening there is really nice by him. So I've picked up the heavy. He hasn't heard me go up the bounce pad, and obviously I haven't gone up this railway. So notice how it actually like limits brain power. He's not actually like, how can I say this? That sounded really rude what I was about to say, but that's not what I meant. You don't have to use as much brain power when you are consciously thinking about decisions that are actually happening in the game. So let's have a look. I'm at the heavy, and he knows that. I pick up this armor. He doesn't hear the bounce pad. He doesn't see me here. It seems obvious that I'm actually going to be here. And it's like, how can I say? That's why sometimes even like, you know, maybe if I faked the bounce pad and did a wall jump, it could have also been quite nice. I could have pretended that it could have been used invis. That's kind of like, that's quite meta, but just kind of getting you thinking about ways in which to like make the game easy for yourself. A part of the problem with Quake Champions is that it requires so much like mental processing to say, is he here? Is he doing that? Is he doing this? But if you kind of eliminate decisions as you're going through the map, actually this decision is like very clear what he needs to do. Because it's unlikely that I'm going to be flying down this fucking corridor with rockets, or even if I was, how can I say, I wouldn't even be close enough to be able to do damage. So this rail is very safe by him. And he's at what I can say, I can say that he's at the cause and not at the effects. And what I mean by that is similar to that DM6 situation where, you know, that big like chicken and the egg, did he hear the sight? I think he didn't hear it, but he knows that, whatever, you get it. Because I've picked up the heavy, he knows more information about me than I know about him. So he has like what I would say is like the rotator's advantage. Maybe you could even say it like that. Because he has more information about the game than I do, because I'm the one who's picked up the item, so now he can kind of like play with position. Whereas I have to kind of guess where he is. Even look what Mick said. Mick 200 IQ.
If he gets his 50, does he think about contesting this mega health? Maybe. Here we go. He's coming.
Yeah, he's surely won it, yeah. That rail, I think, put Dave off sticking around for this.
That is true, Mick. That is true. So now let's look at the situation. This is what like naturally happens between Rapha, Ranger and Nyx in this situation, right? He has to use the orb because of like, it's a bit complicated to explain it. You have to explain every aspect or every detail here, but in terms of positional advantage and player, so Rapha's pushing from the item to try and attack me, but because I have the defender in high position, it should be better for me, but I also have invis, so he's forcing to use like particular weapons. He wouldn't use LG here going up the bounce pad. He has to use rockets, but he has to like, I'm not sure, maybe he thought he had to use LG there, but let's have a look. He goes up the pad, uses rocket. The orb then forces me to now use invis shortly, especially because I don't have much stack. So if I get hit by this next rocket, I kind of have to get out. And now this is where I have to kind of just pick my chances. Am I able to do enough damage in this moment when he had 2 items coming from positional disadvantage, which he has to do, and I'm trying to defend from my positional advantage, doing as much damage as possible. And if we look at the stacks, he does have a slightly more stack advantage than me, but I do have the positional advantage. Now, I should technically win this situation, but I don't because I don't have shotgun. And again, that's all about Quake math or Quake logic, and we'll see why in a second. So we're both using rail, but the difference between using rail and shotgun is exactly how to describe it in this moment, which is that with rail, it has to be very specific. You can only hit the target, and how can I say? Maybe if he's lined up the angle, maybe the player with the rail can win. But the player who's using shotgun doesn't have to do as much like work in terms of crosshair placement. He can just kind of like put his crosshair in the general area, meaning that he can like essentially fire first. And let's have a look what happens. I did actually hit another rail there too, but point being that like, let's say if I'm back here and I don't fire this rail and we're both playing this chicken and the egg, what he can do is he can actually he can play around me. He can fake his sound, go a little bit to the left, then go right, and then it kind of fucks my crosshair placement. But because I'm the one who's using rail, I have to be already looking where he's coming from. But because he's using shotgun, he can be much more loose with how he's pushing this angle. But if I had shotgun, essentially this situation is kind of like we just kind of rotate around each other until we disengage because it's very even. Nice little rail by me there too. And notice again, it's easier to hit because he already was traveling full speed running to the item, so it makes it easier for me to hit that rail. It's a bit risky because if I use invis here and then he picks up the item, or it's just very awkward. He had the right idea there. Let's have a look. But the rocket kind of like pushed him too far. He was trying to like use orb again, similar to like the last situation, but the timing just didn't add up. I understand what Dan is trying to say there too. He said like take time shots and just hide, but it does give him an opportunity kind of in the game. Like a very small one if I do fuck it up. But look at this situation here, right? This is similar to that moment that was like on the DM6 about pressuring. Because if he gets the mega and I don't show up here, I think he has rail, I'm not sure. He does have rail. He trades a rail and he gets the mega. I'm in a pretty shit spot, especially because I don't have invis yet. But because I know that his orb is down, and I don't have an LG, but I know he's less stacked than me. And I also know that if I pick up the mega during this fight, so we're going to be like, I should statistically be able to potentially get the item and disengage, which... So the stunning machine gun is also pushing him away. And it's also making it hard for him to use the LG, because the LG is pushing me away, but I'm also moving backwards. So it's really putting him in a tough spot. He does have the rail, but because he's Ranger, it just makes it a little bit hard for him to get to this position. And it already sets me up to hit the rail.
And honestly, just coming back to that orb Rapha took at Mega, just so like he ate so much damage and then still took the orb.
He's getting out. He's just going to leave, go up the jump pad. Rapha's going to try and make an all play here, but it doesn't matter. He misses up.
And then I think he could even take the heavy if he really wanted, but he doesn't have to. Not that Rapha's there.
And 2-0 up.
And yeah, it's definitely over now.
On.
Yeah, definitely over now.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a bad pick.
Did I call it?
What a performance.
I'm pretty sure I called it.
What a performance. 2-0. Such impressive gameplay. And we talked about it before the game. He was setting up to play the rail game.
For ready for it.
Here, Dave.
I can't believe that just happened.
There was a moment where I did feel like the rail was weird, but I'll have to look back at that in my own time. Okay, one more map, guys, and then might... Well, I'll see how we go. Maybe play a bit on stream. Just one moment. Okay, let's have a keep going. All right, so a little bit of Quake trivia. I hope you got your notepads ready. So online, if you have the higher ping that you have, the opponent's hitbox essentially becomes like twice the fucking size. And sometimes, especially when you're using rail, it can be really effective because you're just basically, if you can just peek a ledge and the hitbox is fucking huge, you're not going to miss. But did you know that when you have really low ping, and we're talking like LAN ping, like 0 or 1, all of a sudden, hitboxes like Soul Lag Clutch now don't actually become that easy to hit. Also, lol Celts, that's a cute emote. And so there's going to be a couple moments which I'll show you later where rails basically go through his fucking left toenail or something, or it goes through his armpit. And rails, especially on this map, and just how everything works, you need to hit him, especially in this matchup when you're playing Visor, where your opening is your damage. Andrew, let's not be too controversial. This is a PG-13 stream, but I'm insinuating, but I'm not confirming. Very subtle difference. All right, let's continue. In some moments. And on some particular matchups. All right, you know what? Fucking... Anyway. All right. He's got the Mega. Goes to LG. Notice how he goes to the LG armor, because then it leaves the T armor up, potentially. Potentially. Oh, bit of lag. Rob. What the fuck was that? All right. Okay, trading. Trading, nice. Gets the Mega. We're pretty even here. I'm curious about me using the ability there. It's not necessarily the worst thing, depending on where he's standing, but because of how to push that angle, maybe what I should have done is, like, I should have used sight. I'll show you. I should have used sight closer to in between tri-bolts and the health bubble. And the reason for that is because I kind of want to see, how can I say? This is similar to that situation before about crosshair placement. He either has to be looking to the right or looking to the left. But what I do is, because I'm just a little bit too far away, I don't even give myself the opportunity to be even able to use the sight, use the position and push him and do a little bit of damage. It's a little bit hard to do. He is quite tucked away, and it's a bit of a distance, but I do need to get some kind of damage, or we're basically playing a VQ3 character against assault like a tank with more stack and a damage ability. So you need to get some value out of the site. Okay, notice that he just stays in between both items. Does manage to hit the rail there. Now he actually is. So let's have a Rapha, fair play. I'll give you this tidbit. So he has the mega, but with heavies, they actually lose less of their overstack, slower than mediums and lights. So also another trivia question. Light champions lose overstack of items. I think it's like 2 every 1 second. Medium champs lose overstack 1 point every 1 second, and heavies lose overstack 0.5 every 1 second, or 1 every 2 seconds. So what he's actually doing here is like he's managed to have not hit the rail, and now he's actually at like quite a higher critical mass than he previously was in other situations. So now his goal, let's have a look. Is T armor up? T armor is not up, which is also quite critical, because now that means that he's going to be able to potentially go back to T, and it's going to force me to an out of control part of the map. But I do hit the rail, and that actually negates the whole situation. But point being, that moment did exist. Interesting that he does deny this armor. It's not too bad that this armor is here. We are going to trade something. Nice. And this is simply a case that Solag is just the hitbox is too big. I kind of understood what he was trying to do there, and let's have a look back again, just real quick. Sorry for going back. I don't want to make it too long. So spamming nails, because I know that I can understand what he's trying to do. Then he picks up the armor, but now, again, this is another interesting thing, maybe about tournament or about like players about who think about strategy a lot. When you overthink a situation too much, look what happens. It seems pretty obvious in hindsight. I mean, hindsight's 2020. How can I say that just dropping here is quite dangerous, but he understands what he's trying to do for such a long time, and you can probably notice this in your own process as well, is that yeah, he's so committed to this idea that no matter fucking what, unless he takes too much damage, he's gonna fucking drop. And that's why he commits. And again, Visor versus Solag, the hitbox is too big. I just kind of crush him there. I make a bit of a mistake there, but he does only survive with 2 HP. And again, notice that situation before that I was saying about it's not necessarily about 1 second. It's not necessarily about winning the fight on high HP as much as that's an advantage. It's actually sometimes more about just winning the frag. And as you can see, he was 2 HP. Now he's 77 and 60. He now has the weapons to defend the mega. But he survived on 2 HP. It should be bad, right? It's actually more, again, depending on the champions and the situation, it's actually more about winning the frag. Nice little defensive move by me. I think, did he hit another rocket? No, it was only one. Okay. Be a bit careful here. This is a mistake by me. I just got a little bit too carried away. It's also a little bit meta too, because Rapha and I have also, I don't know if we've either talked about it or I've mentioned it, even with champion picks and sometimes even with competition, like even when you're talking with people, it's also a bit meta about what's discussed, because previously Rapha, I've picked Visor against Sorlag on CK against Nosfer, I think it was, and at Iron Fist last year, you know, we were talking about it, and he said something like, "Oh, it's not something that he perceives to be good, or that like that Visor is just it's not going to win there." But it's interesting that like, how can I say? You can actually use that against other people in terms of what champions are left in certain matchups like this one, because he kind of potentially knew that I had an inkling to pick Visor because I liked it and because we had already talked about it, right? Okay, let's go both items. Sorry, the sound is muted.
Dave's setting up in the red position. He's going to try and deal maximum
You might
damage.
use the site here now. Would you say? Yep. Okay. He does use it. Oh, nice air rocket. Nice air rail. Yeah, well done to Rapha there to hit that.
And
Nice idea for him to pressure them.
Rapha just wants the heavy.
There's not too much I could do, but. And this is probably one of the other reasons that, like, you know, some of the opportunities that Sorlag has over the Visor.
Yeah, and Rapha is definitely positioned to deny the rail at the moment. And ZenAku knows that.
We're slowly getting to the moment that I wanted to talk about.
not a fight that ZenAku wants to take.
Good tri-bolt. Bit just the zone.
And he's denying another 50 before the red.
But now that he's denied this T armor, I need to do a really good job at maybe potentially committing to this Mega, but I do like quite a decent amount of damage here though. But he's going to be able to get the health bubble and the Mega.
Big rail off spawn. Denies his 50. And top 50 is up as well.
Oh, Dave would have loved to
Before
hit
the red
that.
armor.
He
We're
would
going to
have
see
hit that.
Rapha go to
But
the
Rapha's just cycling the items so
So let's look at another situation as to why the Sorlag is really good here. Because of all these mobility options, and how can I say, he's able to, even being in this position, being in this position at shotgun, he's able to go back to mid.
big rail off spawn. Denies his 50.
There's like not many other champions that can actually do this. Go back to mid with enough speed to pick this armor up, and then also have enough time to commit to the heavy while I'm basically standing on it. And that's similar to that situation we were talking about on DM6 where I accidentally went to time shards, which I was 1 or 2 seconds late to Mega. And all these extra mobility options are what create opportunities in the game that maybe wouldn't necessarily exist if you either didn't make those decisions where you overcommitted or you had the mobility to do it.
ZenAku opting to just go for the red first. And now he knows
which side he's on. Yep.
and he's
Spit denial.
Yep, perfect.
ZenAku
Trying
just
to
to leave.
He's really just trying to get any sort of opening without over-committing.
Yep.
And it's really, honestly, this is really nice, calm gameplay we're seeing from Rapha on the Sorlag here. Really making it work. Another fight going to happen here over the Mega Health.
It's hard because when you're down frags, you need the rail to open up the game. When he has the stack advantage, even though if he has the bigger hitbox, it's kind of hard to create a damage advantage. Let's have a look. It's really hard to create a damage advantage because if we're both trading LG, if he picks a good defensive position, I'm not going to do enough damage to kill him. But let's have a look at this situation. So again, already spamming nails because I know he's going to want to come. Nails against Sorlag, especially a big hitbox, he's going to receive a lot. Now we're actually fighting a fairly even battle. And he's pushing in a choke.
I like it a lot.
Maximize his damage. And Rapha, he's just got, he's still 2 kills up. He's got the control still. But the biggest thing is,
Comes the visor ult, I'd say.
ZenAku deny him weaponry here.
Well, he's denying the rail right now, but that's all.
It's not the end of the world to actually use sight there, especially because I'm going to try set up for the heavy, but let's look at what the issue is. So rail hit, and these are moments like this where the rails start to miss. Oh, I guess maybe potentially it was just that one shot, but still.
He felt Rapha was coming for it, but honestly, he didn't have to stand that close. He should have just played back at the cubby and railed him. It was pretty obvious Rapha was going to jump up, but
Another fire having over the man. He's trying to recommit, but Rapha's just got better mechanics and he takes.
It's a bit hard in this situation. It's a bit awkward here. How can I say? With the amount of time that's left and the amount of control that he has, and the fact that my ability is down, I can potentially play do this move, and it's not necessarily the end of the world. Even though it doesn't necessarily work out, you kind of got to pick your chances, because again, if I wait for my opportunity, and there's like it's going to be like a minute to a minute and a half later, because again, I'm only going to have LG off spawn. I'm not going to be able to do enough rail or use my ability where I can create a big enough advantage, unless he completely fucks up. I think it's not necessarily a bad play to do, especially because it ends up being so close. And no, I don't blame that on ping. I'm just saying that online, sometimes ironically, playing too much can sometimes work against you because you're so used to certain things. I was expecting him to get hit by every fucking rail if I fired in his general direction. But on land, because of you have to be so much cleaner with the rails, that's why / Anarchy, Athena, Nyx becomes so really fucking good too. Because all of a sudden they're not as easy to be railed as they are online, where their hitbox becomes bigger. Other champions too, but that moment there did have a big impact.
Starts to be less committal on these items. Like, if he starts to lose him, he'll probably just leave. Like, there's no need to take this fight, honestly, if you're him. He just wants to do damage.
right there though.
But now, with the amount of mobility options that he has in this kind of frag deficit, it is quite hard to make it work. I do manage to kill him there, but as you can see, every frag that I get, I'm ending up being so stacked. Or you can be so defensive with rockets that no matter what, he can actually push into a corner. It's going to be hard to get him. I mean, that is the 200 IQ thing, Celts, just to actually hit him better. But
Bottom of the barrel.
I like Hudson.
alright, well, let's have a look.
Love it. Rob Corb, look at the graphics. He's updated it to Rapha / Shane and ZenAku.
Just give me 1 second.
Out there.
Thank you for that.
Look at the bottom of the screen. 2-2.
Guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some ranked. Dazbok. I'm going to play ranked for about an hour. And that's it. I'll probably upload these to YouTube later and just stream a bit more.
Dave looked for a number of rail shots that he missed. And
But even just looking back, reflecting on this, how can I say? BJ is also quite good on land too. But the way that I played the Galena and just how I was anticipating him to play, I didn't really maximize the value out of this character. And if you are the one that's playing aggressive, it's much more simpler to do. That's probably maybe why you don't see as much Galena play, because it's just, you kind of have to do a bit of gymnastics to sometimes make it work. You have to do more things to make it effective, whereas other champions are just push and go. And then on the last map, I think it was relatively even there too. Just needed to play it slower. I think I messed up a little bit because I already had the first 2 maps, and then by the time we got to map 3, just the momentum, having such a close stead there, I just didn't pull it through. But that is what it is. All right, guys, quick break, and then we're going to play a bit of ranked if I can find some games. And yeah, I'll be back in a second.